Between 1963 and 1965, the empty, lonely fields of northern England became the hiding place for a series of horrible murders. These crimes were orchestrated by two individuals whose names would forever be etched into the annals of infamy, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. Together, they carried out a reign of terror that left an indelible scar on the nation, earning them the title of the Moors Murderers. Ian Brady, a man with a disturbing fascination for sadism and violence, met Myra Hindley in Manchester in 1961. The connection between them was instant and intense, fueled by a shared love for power and control. Myra, often described as cold and unfeeling, quickly became enthralled by Brady's dark philosophies and disturbing fantasies. It wasn't long before their toxic bond gave birth to one of the most horrifying crime sprees in British history. Their victims were young and innocent, children and teenagers who trusted the wrong pair of strangers. The first was Pauline Reed, a 16-year-old girl who was lured into Hindley's van under the pretense of helping find a missing glove. Brady, waiting in the shadows of the moors, struck without hesitation. Pauline was sexually assaulted, her throat slashed, and her lifeless body buried in the desolate wilderness. This pattern of deceit and brutality would repeat itself with chilling precision. One of their youngest victims, 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey, represents the horrifying cruelty that Brady and Hindley were capable of. On Boxing Day in 1964, the couple abducted Leslie from a fairground. What followed was unspeakable. They brought her back to their home, where they recorded her final moments. On audio tape, the terrified child is heard crying and begging for her life, her voice cracking with desperation as she says, "I want to go home." Hindley's cold voice is heard ordering her to stay quiet. The pair proceeded to strip and sexually assault Leslie before strangling her to death. Her small body was later buried on the moors. Another victim, 12-year-old John Kilbride, was offered a ride by the couple under the guise of a trip home. Instead, he was taken to the moors, where he met the same grim fate. He was sexually assaulted, strangled, and buried in a shallow grave. His disappearance, like the others, haunted his family for years, leaving them in agonizing uncertainty until the truth finally emerged. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of the Moors murders was the pair's ability to blend into society. Myra Hindley, with her platinum blonde hair and carefully cultivated image, appeared to be the perfect neighbor. She even doted on her pet dog, a creature she treated with far more care than the young victims she helped kill. Ian Brady, while quiet and brooding, seemed to live an ordinary life. No one could have imagined the horrors the two committed behind closed doors or out on the lonely moors. Their reign of terror finally ended when Hindley's brother-in-law, David Smith, witnessed the murder of their final victim, 17-year-old Edward Evans. Brady had invited Smith to their home under the pretense of involving him in a robbery. Instead, Smith watched in horror as Brady bludgeoned Edward with an axe. That night, Smith reported the crime to the police, marking the beginning of the end for the Moors murderers. The police investigation uncovered a house of horrors. Among the evidence were chilling photographs of the Moors, showing Ian Brady and Myra Hindley standing over what would later be identified as the burial sites of their victims. But the most damning piece of evidence was an audio recording found in their home. It captured the final agonizing moments of 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey. On the tape, Leslie can be heard crying and pleading for her life, her small, trembling voice echoing in stark contrast to the calm, cold voices of her killers. This recording left even seasoned detectives visibly shaken, and its contents would haunt everyone who heard it. The search for victims led investigators to Saddleworth Moor, a bleak and desolate expanse that had served as the duo's dumping ground. With Myra Hindley present under police supervision, they uncovered the shallow graves of several victims. Each discovery was met with heartbreak and outrage, as families who had spent years wondering about their missing children were finally given devastating closure. However, one victim, Keith Bennett, remained missing. Despite extensive searches and Hindley's occasional claims of cooperation, Keith's body was never found. His grieving mother, Winnie Johnson, would spend the rest of her life searching for answers, passing away in 2012 without ever finding her son. As the trials began, the public was exposed to the full extent of Ian Brady and Myra Hindley's cruelty. The details that emerged were harrowing: tales of deception, sexual assault, and sadistic pleasure taken in their victims' suffering. Brady and Hindley had lured children and teenagers with promises of rides, gifts, or help with simple tasks. Once captured, their victims were subjected to unimaginable horrors before being murdered and buried on the moors. Brady remained stoic and unrepentant throughout the trial, often speaking with a chilling detachment about his crimes. Hindley, on the other hand, attempted to portray herself as a victim of Brady's manipulation. She claimed that he had coerced her into participating, but the evidence, including her voice on the Leslie Ann Downey recording, painted a very different picture. Both were convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment, with the judge making it clear that they should never be released. For the families of the victims, the sentences offered little solace. The loss of their children, coupled with the gruesome details of their deaths, left wounds that would never fully heal. Public hatred for Hindley and Brady was so intense that they became symbols of pure evil, reviled by an entire nation. Brady spent the remainder of his life in a high-security psychiatric facility. He continued to show no remorse, often writing letters in which he expressed twisted justifications for his actions. Hindley, meanwhile, spent decades attempting to gain parole, claiming to have reformed and found religion. Despite her efforts, she remained imprisoned until her death in 2002. The public outcry each time she applied for parole was a testament to the enduring hatred for her and the atrocities she had committed. The legacy of the Moors murders endures as one of Britain's darkest chapters. The barren landscape of Saddleworth Moor remains a grim reminder of the innocent lives lost and the unimaginable cruelty inflicted by two people who reveled in their sadism. Even decades later, the names Ian Brady and Myra Hindley evoke a deep sense of fear and revulsion, a reminder that evil can lurk behind the most unassuming of faces.